All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krueg Show with a little 49er video. As today we do a deep dive on Niners rookie receiver Jordan Watkins, who has been one of the positive surprises of the offseason for sure. We're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Corte Madera. They're in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. Or check him out on Instagram. He's a great follow at Sharp Corners 831 on the gram. And we're also brought to you by LearnKey Upskill Academy, but more from them in a moment. Let's talk a little bit about Jordan Watkins. The rookie from Ole Miss has been impressive. You know, there was 3 players that the Niners drafted that I, at different points in the pre-draft, had mocked to them. And that was C.J. West, Nick Martin, and Jordan Watkins. Those were the 3 players that I, in different mock drafts, had the Niners selecting. And so I was really happy when they drafted Jordan Watkins. I know there were a lot of people that were really upset when Watkins was the Niners' draft choice during day 3 of the draft in the 4th round. But he's been really good. He's been turning heads. According to Nick Wagner on ESPN, he just did a whole breakdown how Jordan Watkins has been turning heads during the limited practices open to the media in the offseason. And he's looked good. He's looked good, and there's opportunity here. Debo's moved on. Brandon Ayuk's recovering from ACL and MCL and meniscus injuries. And so this 4th-round pick out of Ole Miss has had no shortage of opportunities to work with the ones, and he's working with Purdy. Obviously you've got Ayuk hurt. Jennings and Pearsall missed time with injuries, and that's opened the door for Jordan Watkins to get more time, and he's been impressive. So, it's interesting. Rookie receivers oftentimes don't do a whole lot when they step into the NFL, but I really do like Watkins for a lot of reasons. One, he's 5'11", 195 pounds, about 200 pounds. The Niners took him with the 138th pick. The downside is he didn't run the full route tree at Ole Miss. But, he played 2 years at Louisville, was a 3-sport high school star at Butler High School. Then we went to Louisville, was Mr. Football in the state of Kentucky his senior year in high school. And then almost transferred due to hamstring injuries, right away, and then eventually did transfer to Ole Miss. And what a game he had this year against Arkansas. 8 catches for 254 yards and an Ole Miss record 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. He's got this kind of my ball mentality when the ball is in the air. I mean, he just thinks the ball's coming to him. He's a mature guy. He's welcomed a new baby before the Oklahoma game this last year, so he's a father already. This is a guy that will go over the middle. He ran 4.37 at the combine. That was the 6th fastest among all wide receivers. 65% of the time he was outside as a senior at Ole Miss. In 22 and 23, he played predominantly in the slot. But his senior year, he played 65% of the snaps outside. Lane Kiffin demands that his wide receivers block. Charlie Weiss, the OC at Ole Miss, he demands that his receivers block. So this guy's a blocker. It's funny. He said, man, it's amazing being a teammate of Christian McCaffrey. I was just playing against him in Madden a couple of weeks ago, and now here I am, teammates of Christian McCaffrey. So, Watkins is interesting. He's got 36.5-inch vertical, 14 career touchdowns at Ole Miss. He had 9 his final year. One of the comments he made during the OTAs was that the depth of the routes is a little different in San Francisco compared to Ole Miss. And it'll be interesting to see how he makes that how he adapts. He's had some injuries. He broke his hand in 2023. He had a hamstring injury for 2024. But the Niners had a lot of interest in him, and they didn't try to hide it. He knew that the Niners had interest in him prior to the draft. They brought him to Santa Clara for one of their 30 visits. And, it's funny. I heard him in an interview say, the day one of the draft, he went golfing with some friends. Day two, he went out to dinner at Texas Roadhouse for day two, thinking maybe he would get drafted. And then he held a day three party at his home in Louisville. And then, John Lynch eventually called and said, hey, you're our guy. And I think this is going to be a very, very good pick for the 49ers. Tony Pauline, the longtime NFL scout, listed Watkins as one of the 49ers steals of the draft, saying that he has terrific vertical speed and reliable hands, and called him a quality contributor from day one. He's really an interesting player is in that he's got, even though he's, 5'11", roughly 200 pounds, he's kind of built like a running back, and he's got excellent contact balance after the catch. So he's really good in run after the catch situations. He's quick. He's agile. He has 4.37 speed. He'll make that first defender miss. He's got experience on special teams as a punt returner, kick returner. As I said, he did run a limited route tree at Ole Miss. But this is a guy who's strong and plays strong, and he plays through contact. 9 touchdowns the final year at Ole Miss, and he's just an impressive player and a guy that I think is going to be a very good 49er for years to come. Now, I'm going to share the screen, and you guys can take a look at some of the highlights of him. Now, one of the ones that I want to show you is from the gauntlet drill. This is the gauntlet drill at the combine. And here he is. Now, the one thing the Niners like to see in this gauntlet drill is they want to see guys run straight. They don't want to see a zigzag. And look how relatively straight this guy runs. And they also want to see good speed. They want a guy who's going to run full speed, because you have to run full speed. You can't tiptoe across the middle. You have to run full speed, and you have to run oftentimes in a line. You have to know where you're at, and you have to be at where the quarterback expects you to be. I mean, that's the deal in the NFL. Brock Purdy's accurate. The ball's going to come out with accuracy, and it's going to come out on time. The receiver's got to be wherever he's got to be. Wherever his benchmark is, where he's got to be there. And so this is a drill that the Niners put a lot of credence in. As you can see, here is Jordan Watkins running it really well. Very crisp, plucking with his hands, effortlessly catching. That one's behind him. Running a straight line, but not only running a straight line, he's actually running pretty fast here. So this is one of the drills that the Niners really put a lot of credence in at the combine. We'll stop sharing that. But, I think Watkins is going to be a really, really nice player. Now, one of the things Purdy said, Purdy's like, he's been balling from day one. He's had a lot of explosive plays down the field. He's definitely a rookie that has popped out in front of everybody. So that's what Brock Purdy had to say about him. And, it's the thing about Watkins that's nice is that, there's a lot of receivers that have good 40 times, but they don't produce. And then you have guys that, produce, but, they don't have great 40 times, and they probably can't separate. This is a guy who can absolutely separate. And he can make plays down the field. And to me, he is a guy that I think is going to be a really, really interesting 49er. I'll show one last video of just some of the workouts from Santa Clara from OTAs. And here's Watkins just kind of doing his thing against the receiver coach. These are just some drills that the Niner receivers do. But the crispness of it is really impressive. And, the fact is, this guy has refinement. All rookie receivers need, additional refinement. As you can see here, at the top of his stem, he lowers his chest, which is something he's going to have to do, like right there. He's going to have to be a little bit more seamless in his route running, because little indicators like, he lowers his chest is going to give, DBs indicators of when to break on the football. So there's refinement needed. And he hasn't run a full route tree at Ole Miss. So there are some routes that I'm sure he needs work on. But what I love is that he's got good size. He's got good refinement as far as he doesn't body catch the ball. He's got good size. When I say good size, he's not tall, but he's got good power, 6 feet, 200. and he runs through arm tackles. So this guy doesn't go down easily. He's stronger than Jacob Cowing was a year ago, but with 4.37 speed. So the Niners have two receivers that they've drafted in the 4th round in the last 2 drafts, in Cowing and now Watkins, who both run in the 4.3s and have that ability to separate. And I think a guy like Watkins is going to be really good right away, because when you're a good route runner and you have legit speed and you have production, and I'm not concerned about the production. Some people say, well, he did more against Arkansas than he did in some of the other games. Ole Miss is loaded. Juice Wells got drafted. Trey Harris got drafted. They had 3 receivers drafted, and they probably had about 7 receivers on their team that are going to play in the NFL when you consider the underclassmen. So this guy, was in a really, really good group of players. And yet, Trey Harris was the star. And when Harris went down, they needed someone to step up, and Watkins was the guy who stepped up. So I really like him. I think he's going to be a very good 49er. We'll stop sharing the video here. But I really think he's a good 49er. I think it was a very, very good draft choice. You got a guy who has shown production. You have a guy who stepped up. The other thing is Ole Miss has so many phenomenal athletes on both sides of the ball. This guy went up against Trey Amos in practice every day. Trey Amos is going to be a very good NFL corner. Ole Miss had big-time talent. So you can see a lot of rookies step onto an NFL field, and they're just overwhelmed and intimidated by all the athleticism that's also out there with them for the very first time. And you could see that Watkins, there was no intimidation at all. Why? Because Ole Miss has some of the most talented guys in all of college football. He's been on the field with great corners, great DBs, great linebackers, guys with tons of speed. And he's not intimidated at all by that NFL, the NFL athlete. And that was pretty clear. So I'm excited. The fact that Lane Kiffin kind of demands his receivers to block means that they've got a more polished guy in that, that area of wide receiver play. The Niners have a familiar refrain when it comes to their receivers and their running backs. No block, no rock. In other words, the ball ain't coming your way unless you're willing to block for your teammates. And this is a guy who came out of a culture where blocking was valued and emphasized. So I really like him. I think it was a steal of a pick. Anytime you can find a guy that runs this good of routes and was this productive in a big-time conference and also runs 4.37 for the stopwatch, I think it's a very, very safe pick, and I can't wait to see Watkins bust out this summer. All right, now let's have a word from our sponsor, LearnKey. The video is sponsored by LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. Whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, marketing, it could be any number of high-demand fields. They offer over 30 certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. They've been in business for 37 years. They've worked with over 200,000 students along the way, and they place about 100 every month in well-paying jobs. So it's a really good program. It's a really good company. The link's in the description below. Thanks to them, and thanks to all of our sponsors for sponsoring the Krueg Show. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krueg Show on YouTube.